And so here's another little bit of, if you want to call it hysteria, for everybody to bear in mind. So here's Mike Waltz, still a sitting congressman from Florida, did not resign way prematurely like Matt Gaetz. So he's still in office, but he's been named Trump's national security advisor, which, it should be said, it's not even a Senate confirmed position. And I've been over this point before, but Trump could have appointed virtually anybody to the position of national security advisor and not even have to subject it to Senate confirmation. And this is who he picked, Mike Waltz, who is, every time I've interacted with him, everything I've ever seen of him really indicates that he's one of the most ardent militarists, interventionists, etc., in the House of Representatives. And so he's out now on behalf of Trump, speaking as his incoming national security advisor. And then here's another little piece of the hysteria, if you want to put it that way. It's not that Waltz is engaging in any visible hysteria here in these remarks, but look at one thing that he says here, and it should, I think, highlight where the skepticism ought to be directed around this issue. Again, not at ordinary New Jerseyans or New Yorkers or whomever happens to think they see one of these objects hovering in the sky, but the vested interests that could very easily use the public uproar around this issue and the media attention and the political snafu that it's created to serve certain policy initiatives that or advance certain policy initiatives that they had wanted to pursue anyway. So here he was today.
Well, I think what the drone issue points out are kind of gaps in our agencies, gaps in our authorities between the Department of Homeland Security, local law enforcement, the Defense Department. I think Americans are finding it hard to believe. We can't figure out where these are coming from. And I can tell you from the Defense Department standpoint, they're focused on bombers and cruise missiles, and it's pointing to gaps in our capabilities and our ability to clamp down on what's going on here. And we need to get to the bottom of it. And I think the Biden administration is working to do that.
But at this point, given the intelligence you've...
So he says he thinks that the Biden administration is working on getting to the bottom of this. So if you recall, maybe you never saw this, but I think 2 weeks ago or so now, Waltz was being interviewed about Ukraine policy, and he said that he and Jake Sullivan, the incumbent national security advisor, were on the quote same team as it related to Ukraine. This was shortly after Biden authorized Ukraine to use U.S. missiles, ATACMS missiles, to strike targets deeper and deeper inside Russia. So Waltz didn't object to that. He actually said that he and the Biden administration were on the same page on this issue, and he's in regular contact with Sullivan. And notice he's not criticizing the Biden administration anymore. He's saying that they're just on this good faith quest to get to the bottom of it. So that's notable.
You've seen, is there any reason for the public to be worried?
Well, look, when you have sensitive sites like Picatinny Arsenal, you have, of course, President Trump's residence at Bedminster, and you have other no-fly areas. Those need to be enforced. We need to know who's behind it. But right now, I think law enforcement seems to be the Department of Homeland Security and the Defense Department are kind of all doing this and pointing at each other. So when we come in, how do we enforce these low-level, long loitering, could be dangerous drones? And one thing for people to appreciate, they're evolving so rapidly. It's not necessarily somebody that's just on the other end flying it. They could be following pre-positioned GPS coordinates. They could be coming from offshore. And
so when he says they could be coming from offshore, that's what Jeff Van Drew was asserting. Waltz doesn't specify that they're from an Iranian drone mothership, but if they're coming from offshore, that lines up with the theory, or more like an assertion, that Jeff Van Drew was positing. And, you know, in fairness, there have been sightings from seemingly credible sources. I don't know. I haven't interviewed the uh, employee of the Ocean County, New Jersey Sheriff's Office who were told saw 50 drones coming off the ocean. So it's not like it's out of the question. I don't know what the origin of these things are, but given that uncertainty, there are things that I do know, which is that politicians and people in positions of authority are going to use this episode to advance their interests. So that's something maybe a little bit more worth focusing on rather than crazy conjecture on the basis of knowledge that we can't possibly possess. But let's just finish this clip.
We need to take a hard look at our homeland defenses. President Trump has talked about an Iron Dome for America. That needs to include drones as well, not just adversarial actions like hypersonic missiles. We need to have an all of the above protection of U.S. airspace.
Okay, so his point there is that this whole drone fracas highlights the need for the U.S. to institute an Iron Dome for America program, which Trump had been promoting over the course of the campaign. It didn't get a whole lot of attention. But this could very easily be another massive Pentagon boondoggle. And we're told Trump is somehow opposed to the military-industrial complex. Who do you think is going to be producing the quote-unquote Iron Dome for America? I'm very confident that there are a lot of defense contractors who are salivating at that opportunity. Because throughout the decades, there have been missile programs, missile defense so-called programs like the Star Wars program in the 80s, famously under Reagan. It's just been giant boondoggles for the most part. So if this is the latest version of that, but now with extra urgency because of the so-called drone incursion, then it's very easy to see how this episode or this event could be used to advance certain longstanding policy wishes. And those policy wishes probably are going to be overwhelmingly favorable to vested interests in the national security state, in the military industrial complex, if you want to use that terminology. So that's what I think is best to be mindful of. Okay. Anything else on this? Let me see. I mean, one thing that's funny is the idea that it's an Iranian drone mothership. So Iran is so advanced, so well-resourced, so ahead of the curve that it somehow figured out how to send a giant drone mothership on a voyage across the globe to park off the coast of New Jersey and send its drones to infiltrate American airspace. But it had no ability, clearly, to do anything about the rapid disintegration of the Syrian government with which it was aligned. And now it has its transit points across Syria to send arms and resources to its satellite groups like Hezbollah. That's been totally blocked off now, as far as we know. So that would be a weird allocation of resources on Iran's part. And what are they getting from these drone incursions exactly? Just like making people annoyed? Are they all going to like drop a payload eventually and like blow stuff up? That seems improbable based on what we know of the drones. So anyway,